I got the impression, I mean, when I was watching this, that you hear all about the radicals. I mean, it seems like you have radicals and then you have people who may not themselves do radical things, but they sanction the radicalism because they think it's justified.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the wider problem in the global Islamic community, which is, of course, the majority, vast majority of Muslims are not engaging in any kind of terrorism. But the fact that there's a significant, a great stat or really a horrific stat, is a Pew poll was done a couple of years ago on the U.S. Islamic community, and they found that 20% of young Muslims under 35 are okay with terrorism against civilians. Now, you can say, well, 80% are against it, but 20% supporting it who are willing to say that to a researcher is an incredibly large number.
Those are millions when you consider how many people identify themselves as Muslim. Those are, I mean, when you break down the math, those are millions of people.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, and again, there's a road that we're going down that we got to be careful. And what I'm saying, and by the way, I'm not in any way anti-immigrant, quite the opposite.
Right.
I personally am a product of immigration. I mean, that may be an argument against immigration, but that's not the point. But the truth is that immigration is an important backbone for this country, socially, culturally, politically, economically.
Right.
But you look at Europe, and you look at what has happened to London, the demographics of London and of Paris and all over Europe, and there's a troubling trend that we need to be very careful of here.
Very much so, and we have our American justice system, and one of the questions that you were asking was when you were asking about Sharia, and there was a young boy. I'm not quite sure how old that boy was, but he looked like, I mean, he couldn't have been no more than 12. And the boy that you were asking, he was, he was very well spoken, and he said, well, no, I prefer Sharia. And he was saying, look at all of these shops that are here. They can keep their doors open. If someone steals, in Sharia, you just cut off their hand. He was so casual in discussing this. A child.
Matter of fact about it.
Yes, a child. And how did that strike you? I mean, that he was just like, oh, well, it's so much safer because people could have their hands cut off.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. This is a child who was born here, a very smart, eloquent kid. I mean, more eloquent than my 12-year-old. But it was very clear, what's kind of been, what's permeated his head in terms of what he's being taught.
Right.
And that's, Shariah law is a very aggressive form, to put it mildly, of law.
Right.
And, this is why he was supporting it.
When you hear, because when I was watching your video, there's one thing that really came to mind, is that we always hear from, the elected class. Well, it's just that we're not doing enough outreach, or we're not doing enough things we're not accommodating enough to the Muslim community. But when I look at that, I don't see it as an issue of accommodation or outreach or friendliness. I see the situation that I see are people who come to the United States and they want the American legal system to kind of scoot over and share the same space and equal consideration with Sharia law for injustice. And that seems to me to be the big problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, I totally understand why they would want to have Sharia law in their personal life, and that's they want to live their life that way, right? They're Muslim, and that's perfectly appropriate. But what blows me away is they were calling for blasphemy law, right? That impinges on my freedom.
Yes.
And that's what, I mean, blasphemy laws you find in Pakistan. You don't find them in Minneapolis or the United States. And that's what really kind of got me on my haunches, and I was like, whoa, this is a problem. If they're calling to impinge on the freedoms of Americans to protect theirs. I mean, you don't see, the Church of Latter-day Saints complaining about, banning,
the Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see that at all.
It's completely analogous to what we're talking about with the Prophet Muhammad. There's no difference there.